The chamber fell silent when Kenji Yamamoto stood. 8 times humanity had brought evidence to the Galactic Council. 8 times they had shown recordings of Drask warships glassing civilian stations, of colony worlds burning, of 3 million souls screaming into the void. 8 times the council had voted to table the matter, to form another committee, to wait for more evidence. Kenji's voice was quiet when he spoke. We have followed every protocol. We have submitted to every delay. We have watched species die while you debate procedures. He placed a data chip on the council podium. This contains our final report. We will not be filing another. Council Speaker Theron, a Vax whose species had held the position for 2 centuries, barely looked up from his notes. Ambassador Yamamoto, the council appreciates Earth's concerns, but unilateral action outside council authority would be. We're done asking, Kenji said. The words carried no anger, no heat, just finality. Fine. We'll handle it ourselves. The translation matrix struggled with the phrase. Several species heard it as a simple statement of intent. Others caught undertones their software couldn't parse. But Theron's political instincts, honed over 100 years, recognized something in those words that made his throat constrict. Ambassador, I must warn you that independent military action would result in immediate sanctions. Kenji was already walking toward the exit. His security detail moved with him, their faces blank. You can discuss sanctions at your next session, he said without turning. We won't be attending. The doors closed behind him with a soft hiss. For several seconds, the council chamber remained quiet. Then the Kelmar representative, a being whose species prided itself on military analysis, began to laugh. The humans think they can challenge the Drask hierarchy? Their fleet is less than 1/10 the size. Their technology is adequate at best. They're going to get themselves exterminated. Theron wanted to agree. Every logical analysis said the Kelmer was right, but something about the way Kenji had walked out, the complete absence of bravado or rage, settled in his stomach like ice. His concern proved prophetic 90 seconds later, when every security system in the council chambers screamed to life simultaneously. The central hologram exploded with alerts. Crimson warnings flooded the display, each one stamped with maximum priority. Theron's datapad nearly burned his hand as emergency notifications overwhelmed its processors. What is happening? He demanded. The Council's head of intelligence, a synthetic consciousness named Orbit 7, materialized in the chamber. Its avatar flickered with what might have been panic if AIs could panic. Massive energy signatures detected across all human-controlled space. FTL inhibitors activating. Deep space monitoring stations going offline in sequence. Civilian traffic being rerouted. A military exercise? The Kelmar representative suggested. No. Orbit 7's voice carried absolute certainty. This is full mobilization. This is full mobilization. Every human warship, every defense platform, every military installation just went to war status simultaneously across 200 star systems. The Vrenla delegate, whose species valued peace above all else, spoke in a trembling voice. How is that possible? That level of coordination requires... They planned this, Orbit 7 interrupted. Months ago, maybe years. Every contingency, every protocol, already in place. They were waiting for this exact moment. Theron's hand shook as he accessed the raw data. The scope was staggering. Humanity had activated military assets the Council hadn't even known existed. Deep space installations that intelligence reports had listed as research stations were now broadcasting weapons-grade energy signatures. Civilian shipyards were pumping out warships using manufacturing techniques that shouldn't be possible. How many ships? He asked quietly. Orbit 7 paused. We're still counting. Current estimate is 40,000 capital-class vessels, 300,000 support craft. The numbers keep rising. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate intervention, others calling for sanctions, still others suggesting they'd underestimated human industrial capacity. Parasynthoids are dangerous creatures. Orbit 7? Threat assessment. The AI's avatar turned to face him directly. Council Speaker, Based on observed capabilities and deployment patterns, I assess that humanity now poses an extinction-level threat to any species in this galaxy, including us. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "That's absurd," the Kelmar representative sputtered. "They're barely a Type 2 civilization. Their weapons are conventional. Their tactics are—" "We know nothing about their weapons," Orbit 7 said flatly. "Every engagement we've observed has been against pirates and raiders. They've never deployed their full capabilities, never revealed their actual technology. We've been watching them fight with one hand behind their back for 50 years, and we assumed that was all they had." Theron felt the weight of catastrophic failure settling on his shoulders. "Contact Ambassador Yamamoto immediately." "All human diplomatic channels are offline," Orbit 7 reported. "Embassies across Council space are evacuating. They began 12 hours ago." 12 hours? Theron's voice cracked. "Before he even addressed this council?" "Yes. They knew what our response would be. They'd already made their decision." The Vrenla delegate stood on shaking legs. "We must stop them. Deploy Council peacekeeping forces. Blockade their space. Something." Orbit 7's avatar flickered red. "Council Speaker, I strongly advise against direct confrontation. We have no reliable intelligence on human military doctrine, no understanding of their strategic capabilities, and no countermeasures for technology we haven't seen. Engaging them now would be suicide." "Then what do we do?" Theron demanded. The AI was silent for a long moment. "We watch. And we hope they remember mercy when this is over." 3 systems away, the Drask hierarchy was laughing. High Commander Vrek reviewed the intelligence reports with barely concealed amusement. Humans were mobilizing their fleet. Humans were making threats. Humans apparently thought they could challenge an empire that had conquered 200 worlds. "They're posturing," Vrek told his command staff. "Trying to frighten us into negotiating. It won't work." His intelligence chief, a cautious officer named Soreth, wasn't convinced. "Commander, the energy signatures we're detecting don't match known human technology. Something has changed." "Humans are merchants and politicians," Vrek said dismissively. "They've survived this long by hiding behind council protection and making trade deals. Now that protection is gone, they're desperate. They'll send a token force, we'll destroy it, and they'll come crawling back to the council begging for intervention." Saruth pulled up a tactical display. "Our forward base at Kessler Station reports unusual readings at the system's edge. Something is interfering with long-range sensors." Vrek waved a dismissive claw. "Probably their jamming technology. Primitive but effective at short range. Maintain alert status, but I'm not concerned." He would later identify this moment as the worst mistake of his life. The attack came without warning. One moment Kessler Station sensors showed empty space. The next, 17 human warships materialized inside the system's defensive perimeter using a form of FTL transit that physics said was impossible. They didn't broadcast demands, didn't issue warnings. They simply opened fire. The Drask had 300 warships stationed at Kessler. They were the hierarchy's finest vessels. Crewed by veterans of a dozen campaigns, they had shields capable of withstanding nuclear detonations and weapons that could crack planets. They lasted 17 minutes. The human ships moved like nothing Drask sensors had ever tracked. They phased in and out of normal space, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. Their weapons ignored shields entirely, striking through defensive barriers as if they weren't there. When Drask vessels returned fire, the beams and missiles passed through empty space where human ships had been milliseconds before. Soreth watched the battle from the hierarchy's command ship in orbit around the Drask homeworld. His screens showed impossibilities. Human vessels occupying the same coordinates as Drask ships, firing from inside their targets. Weapons that seemed to hit before they were fired. Energy signatures that made his instruments scream errors. "What are we seeing?" Vrek demanded, his earlier confidence evaporating. "I don't know," Soreth whispered. "Their technology, it's not an advancement of what we know. It's something completely different. A Drask destroyer managed to land a direct hit on a human cruiser. The blast should have vaporized it. Instead, the ship flickered, and the energy dissipated harmlessly into some dimensions Soreth's sensors couldn't measure. They're not dodging our attacks, he realized with growing horror. They're shifting into different spatial states. Our weapons exist in 3 dimensions. Theirs exist in Previs. More than that. The battle ended when the last Drask vessel tried to retreat. It made it 30,000 kilometers before a human weapon punched through its engines. The ship didn't explode. It simply stopped existing in observable space, folded into some quantum state that defied comprehension. Of 300 Drask warships, 17 managed to eject escape pods. The human fleet allowed them to deploy, then vanished back into whatever impossible space they'd emerged from. They left behind a debris field and a message in every language the Drask spoke. Withdraw from all occupied territories within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in systematic elimination of all hierarchy military assets. This is not a negotiation. Soreth played the message for Vrek 3 times before the High Commander found his voice. How many ships did they lose? Soreth checked the readings, then checked again, certain he'd made an error. None. Not a single casualty. Minimal damage to 2 vessels, self-repaired during the engagement. Vrek stared at the tactical display, watching the replay of his fleet's destruction. Contact the Council. Tell them we need immediate military support. The Council won't intervene, Soreth said quietly. The humans tried to get them involved 8 times. They refused. We're on our own. The High Commander's claws scraped against his command throne. Then we'll mobilize everything. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. If the humans want war, we'll give them one they won't survive. But even as he gave the orders, Vrek couldn't shake the image of human ships phasing through reality like ghosts, killing with weapons that bent space itself. For the first time in his 40 years of military service, he felt something he'd never experienced on a battlefield. Fear. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 18 hours after the Kessler massacre. Every species sent representatives. Every intelligence service shared data. Every military strategist contributed analysis. None of it helped. They've hit 12 Drask installations in the last day, Orbit 7 reported. Military shipyards, supply depots, command stations, all destroyed with the same efficiency as Kessler. Total Drask casualties exceed 200,000. Human casualties remain at 0. The Kelmar representative who'd laughed at humanity's threats now sat in stunned silence. His species had fought the Drask to a standstill twice in the last century, battles that had cost millions of lives on both sides. The humans were dismantling the hierarchy, like children breaking toys. Their weapons, the Vrenla delegate asked. Have we identified the technology? No, Orbit 7 admitted. Our best scientists theorize they've weaponized quantum mechanics in ways we don't understand. They're not just moving through space. They're manipulating probability fields, existing in superposition states, treating causality as a suggestion rather than a law. Theron felt sick. How long have they had this capability? Unknown. But our analysis of human scientific publications over the last century suggests they've been pursuing theoretical physics that we dismissed as impractical. Apparently, they solved problems we thought were unsolvable. A new alert flashed across the displays. The Drask Homeworld's defense network had just activated every weapon platform in orbit. The hierarchy was marshalling its final stand. They're going to fight, the Kelmar representative observed. They're going to die, Orbit 7 corrected. The human fleet just entered Drask home system space. The Council watched through long-range observation satellites as humanity's armada materialized around the Drask homeworld. Not 17 ships this time. Thousands. They formed a perfect sphere around the planet, equidistant from each other, their positioning so precise it had to be computer-controlled. Then they just waited. The Drask fired first. Every orbital platform, every defense satellite, every weapons emplacement on the planet's surface unleashed everything simultaneously. Enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds lit up the system like a newborn star. The human ships didn't move, didn't evade. The attack simply failed to connect, weapons passing through empty space where probability said solid matter should exist. When the barrage ended, a single transmission broadcast across all frequencies. Kenji Yamamoto's voice, calm and patient, filled the void. High Commander Vrek, you have 1 hour to surrender your military infrastructure and stand down all armed forces. This is your only warning. Brek's response was immediate and defiant. Humanity will burn for this violation of sovereign space. The Council will... The Council had their chance, Kenji interrupted. They chose politics over justice. 8 times we begged them to act. 8 times they refused. So now we act. Your choice is simple. Surrender or be eliminated. You have 59 minutes. The channel closed. The human fleet continued to wait, silent and motionless, a sphere of mechanical patience surrounding a world of mounting terror. Theron watched the timer count down. 30 minutes. 20. 10. He's not going to surrender, the Vrenla delegate whispered. No, Theron agreed. He's not. At 0, the human fleet moved as one. They didn't fire weapons. Instead, every ship activated some kind of field generator simultaneously. Space around the Drask homeworld rippled like water. Every military installation on the planet, every weapons factory, every barracks, every command center, every single structure dedicated to warfare simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Removed from reality as if they'd never been built. Civilian structures stood untouched. Cities remained intact. Hospitals, schools, homes, all perfectly preserved. But everything military, from orbital platforms to underground bunkers, vanished in an instant. The precision was horrifying. The power required was incomprehensible. They just disassembled matter at the molecular level, Orbit 7 said, its voice carrying something that might have been awe. Selective targeting down to individual atoms. They erased the Drask military infrastructure without harming a single civilian. Kenji's voice returned to the broadcast. Your military no longer exists, High Commander. Your people are unharmed because we choose to show restraint. If you rebuild weapons, we will return and remove them again. If you attack neutral worlds, we will remove your ability to reach space. If you choose war, we will choose to end your civilization. Do you understand? The response from the planet's surface was chaos. Multiple voices, all shouting, some in rage, others in fear. Then a new voice cut through the noise. Older, quieter. This is Council Elder Methrek of the Drask hierarchy. High Commander Vrek no longer speaks for our people. We surrender. The human fleet maintained position for another hour. Then, one by one, they phased out of normal space, leaving behind a world stripped of military power and drowning in shocked silence. The council chamber remained silent for a long time after the broadcast ended. Finally, the Kelmar representative spoke. They could do that to any of us. At any time. Yes, Orbit 7 confirmed. Based on observed capabilities, humanity could neutralize any species in this galaxy within 72 hours. Possibly much faster. Terran's political instincts, which had served him so well for so long, now showed him the terrible truth. They've always been able to do this. The technology, the planning, the capability, they've had it for years. They've been holding back. Why? The Vrenla delegate asked. If they had this power, why wait? Why go through diplomatic channels? Why ask permission at all? The answer came not from the council, but from a new transmission. Kenji Yamamoto appeared on their displays, standing in what looked like a simple office. Behind him, through a window, Earth turned peacefully in the void. Council Speaker Theron, he said. I believe you have questions. Theron gathered what remained of his composure. You could have acted at any time. You could have stopped the Drask months ago. Why wait? Kenji's expression was tired but patient. Because we meant what we said. We believe in the Council's mission. We believe in cooperation, in diplomacy, in solving conflicts without violence. We built these weapons hoping we'd never need them. We asked 8 times because we wanted you to be the ones to act. But we failed, Theron said quietly. You did. And people died because of it. Kenji pulled up a holographic display. This is what we've been doing while you debated. Every species in Council space, every military installation, Every weapons platform, every strategic asset, permission, displacement and energy freezes. We've mapped it all. We know where your ships patrol, where your ammunition is stored, where your command centers operate. We've had this information for 30 years. The implications crashed over Theron like a tsunami. You've been spying on everyone. We've been careful, Kenji corrected. We joined the council in good faith. But we learned early that good faith wasn't universal, so we prepared, just in case the day came when diplomacy failed and we needed to act alone. That's a violation of a dozen treaties, the Kelmar representative protested. So is genocide, Kenji replied flatly. The Drask killed 3 million people while you wrote reports. We violated your privacy. You can decide which is worse. Orbit 7's avatar flickered. Ambassador, what happens now? Kenji was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of absolute conviction. Now, we establish new protocols. When a species commits genocide, when civilians are targeted, when neutral worlds burn, the Council will have 72 hours to act. If you fail to intervene, we will. We'll do what you won't. We'll stop the killing. You're threatening us, Theron said. We're making a promise, Kenji corrected. We gave you the chance to be the galaxy's conscience. You chose politics. So now we'll be the galaxy's last resort. The option nobody wants but everyone knows exists. The Vrinla delegate stood, her voice shaking with emotion. You're making yourselves judge and executioner. No, Kenji said quietly. We're making ourselves the people who act when innocents die in council's debate. We don't want this role. We try to avoid it. But you've taught us that asking permission gets people killed. He leaned forward, and his eyes held something ancient and implacable. Here's what you need to understand. We're not conquerors. We're not empire builders. We don't want your worlds or your resources. We just want the killing to stop. And we've learned that the only way to ensure that is to be strong enough that everyone knows we can end them if they choose genocide. That's tyranny, the Kelmar representative said. That's deterrence, Kenji replied. Every species in this galaxy now knows what happens if they target civilians. They know humanity is watching. They know we have the capability to end them, and they know we'll use it if we have to. Not for territory, not for power, but to stop atrocities. Theron felt the old order dying around him. Everything the council had been, everything it represented was ending in this moment. And if we refuse, if we try to stop you? Kenji's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes made Theron's blood freeze. Council Speaker, you can't stop us. Nobody can. We've had 50 years to prepare for every possible scenario. We've built weapons you can't detect, deployed assets you can't track, and developed contingencies for threats you haven't imagined yet. If you try to oppose us, you'll lose. Quickly. Then we're all your prisoners, the Vrenla delegate said bitterly. No, Kenji said, and now his voice softened. You're all safe. From each other. From conquerors, from anyone who thinks might makes right, and civilians are acceptable casualties. We're not your masters. We're your emergency backup, the option you hope you never need. He stood, preparing to end the transmission. The Drask hierarchy still exists. Their people are unharmed. Their culture is intact. They just can't make war anymore. That's our model. We remove the ability to commit atrocities. We don't remove species. But make no mistake, if you choose violence, if you target innocents, if you make us say, fine, we'll handle it again, your military capability will disappear in hours, not days. The transmission ended. The council chamber sat in silence, every representative processing the new reality. Finally, Orbit 7 spoke. He's right. We can't stop them. Our combined military forces couldn't match what they showed at the Drask homeworld. They've been the apex predator all along. We just didn't know it. Because they let us believe we were safe, Theron said quietly. They could have conquered us at any time. Instead, they played by our rules, followed our laws, and only showed their teeth when we forced them to. The Kelmar representative pulled up intelligence reports, scanning through decades of data with new eyes. Every time we've seen humans fight, they've been holding back. Every engagement, every conflict, every military action, they were using a fraction of their actual capability. Why? the Vrenla delegate asked. Why hide that kind of power? Theron thought about Kenji's tired eyes, the weight of responsibility in his voice. Because they didn't want to terrify us. They wanted to be our partners, not our overlords. They only revealed their true strength when we left them no choice. And now everyone knows, Orbit 7 said. The Drask surrender is broadcasting across the galaxy. Every species is seeing what humanity can do. The balance of power just shifted completely. Theron accessed the broader intelligence networks. The AI was right. Across Council space, military forces were standing down. Species that had territorial disputes were suddenly opening diplomatic channels. Pirates and raiders were fleeing to deep space. Everyone had gotten the message. When humanity said, "Fine, we'll handle it," civilizations fell in days. What do we do? The Vrenla delegate asked. Theron considered the question carefully. The old council was dead. Its authority, its relevance, its power to shape galactic events, all of it had died the moment human ships materialized around the Drask homeworld. But maybe, he thought, something better could be built from the ruins. We do our jobs, he said finally. We act when species request intervention. We stop genocides before humanity has to. We become the council we should have been all along. And if we fail again? The Kelmar representative asked. Theron looked at the tactical display showing the Drask homeworld, stripped of military infrastructure in seconds, civilians unharmed, but their government's teeth permanently pulled. Then we remember what happens when we make humanity stop asking and start handling things themselves. The motion to establish new intervention protocols passed unanimously. For the first time in Council history, every species agreed on something. 6 months later, Theron stood in a different chamber, watching as the Drask signed a treaty, establishing them as a protectorate under Council supervision. Former High Commander Vrek was gone, replaced by a civilian government that had no military to command. The hierarchy's 300 conquered worlds had been granted independence. Reconstruction was ongoing. Kenji Yamamoto stood nearby, observing the proceedings. Theron approached him quietly. Your people changed everything, the council speaker said. Your people failed to act, Kenji replied without malice. We just made sure that failure had consequences. The galaxy fears you now. Good. Kenji's voice was firm. Fear prevents atrocities. Fear makes tyrants think twice. We didn't want to be feared, but if that's what it takes to stop the killing, we'll accept it. Theron hesitated, then asked the question that had haunted him for months. Your weapons. That technology. How long have you had it? Kenji smiled slightly. Long enough to know we never wanted to use it? But we're not sorry we did. 3 million people died because the council waited. We made sure it won't happen again. And if someone challenges you, if a species develops weapons to match yours, then we'll develop better ones, Kenji said simply. We didn't survive our own history by being weak. We learned that strength keeps the peace when words fail. We'll always be stronger, always be ready, because the moment we're not, the killing starts again. The treaty signing concluded. The Drask representatives left the chamber, their former empire reduced to a single world under supervision. But they were alive, their culture intact, their people unharmed except for those who'd chosen to fight. Theron watched them go and understood the terrible mercy humanity had shown. They could have eliminated the Drask entirely. Instead, they'd removed their ability to harm others and walked away. Council speaker, Kenji said, preparing to leave. One more thing. Yes, we're still watching, still mapping, still preparing. Not because we want to, but because we have to. If another species tries what the Drask did, we'll handle it the same way. Quickly, efficiently, permanently. I understand, Theron said. Kenji nodded and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused and looked back. We asked you 8 times to do the right thing. We're hoping we never have to ask again. But if we do and you refuse, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. When humanity said fine, we'll handle it, the galaxy had learned to listen. Because the alternative was watching your entire military infrastructure disappear in 17 minutes, your weapons vanish like morning fog, and your civilization reduced to a cautionary tale about what happens when you make the quiet species angry. The Council had failed its test. Humanity had passed theirs. And now everyone knew that the soft-spoken diplomats from Earth had been apex predators all along, just waiting patiently for the galaxy to give them a reason to bare their teeth. They'd given that reason, and the galaxy would spend generations making sure they never gave it again.